grew up a foster kid, so I really have a heart for young people. Kind of lost my direction in my teenage years, and then when God got a hold to me, I was always looking for ways to give back.
When we think about leadership, we think position, we think authority.
I think leaders are made and developed over time. To lead people well, you have to desire to serve people. That's where it starts. When we're following the patterns of the world and the principles of the world, it's all about getting to the top, getting all you can for yourself, and using people to benefit you. Some people will take what you teach them and what you give them and they'll leave, but that's okay. Those aren't the people you want on your team anyway. You want people that when you invest in them, they invest back into whatever it is that you guys are doing together.
Can you put it practical, a time where you've seen bad leadership?
I felt like in that moment God was telling me, like, every situation you're in is a learning opportunity. Life is, 10% what happens to you, 90% how you deal with it.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Fatherhood Foundation Podcast, where we talk all things fathering. We're so excited to have a special guest on today, Pastor Brandon from Mobile, Alabama. You have quite the story. You've been part of many organizations, seen a lot of failures, but seen a lot of successes. And we're so excited to learn from you today. But how are you today?
Man, I'm good. So glad to be here. Thank you for having me. And I love the way you say Mobile. I like the way that flows from you. So
come on, somebody.
Yeah, Mobile, Alabama.
English is my second language. You know how it is. So tell us a little bit about some of the organizations that you've been involved with, and Pastor, and if you want to introduce a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've since about 2010, I've been serving in ministry capacity, nonprofits, worked with several churches, so I've been a part of some recovery programs, worked with the Wings of Life before. Also had an organization called Urban Missionaries. So we would go into what would be considered high-risk neighborhoods, a lot of underprivileged youth. That was kind of my heart. I grew up a foster kid, so I really have a heart for young people. Kind of lost my direction in my teenage years, and then when God got a hold to me, I was always looking for ways to give back. So, we did some Christian hip-hop for a few years, and that took us around the country on tour. And, we were able to work in schools, boys and girls clubs, juvenile detention centers, and that kind of birthed Urban Missionaries. And the whole concept was to, try to reach young people and help them find direction in life, connecting them to mentorship and entrepreneurial opportunities and things of that nature. 2016, I was asked to come out and be a part of Powerhouse Church, which is how you and I met. I had got introduced to Powerhouse through Intense Men. I first came to Intense in 2012. One of the most powerful events I've ever been a part of. I heard the message of manhood and Christ-likeness at that event. It completely, transformed my life. I wanted to be a part of it, wanted to do whatever it took to be a part of it. And that's kind of been a major part of my journey along the way. So, get to do missions, get to travel overseas, get to work with the global leaders in the international nonprofit sector. So it's a great life. God's been really good to me.
That's good. And I know you're fresh off the press. You came back from Sri Lanka, right? You helped counsel a few of the pastors out there. And so I think today the heart of everybody is, one, they want to do the will of God, and they want to lead well. Right? And I think of when we think about leadership, we think position, we think authority. And what would you say to a leader who's starting off, or maybe who is in a current position? What's the proper way to lead? Is there a right way to lead? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah. Well, number one, I really think that everybody is a leader in some capacity. A lot of people say leaders are born. I think leaders are made and developed over time. And I think leadership really starts with service. A desire to serve causes us to grow. In my personal life, I would be considered uneducated. I never went to college. I don't have a GED, dropped out of high school. Most of the things I learned hands-on or on the fly, on the job, as you would say. But when I got saved, God had done such a miraculous work in my life. It was such a profound, transformational moment for me. And I desired for others to experience what I was experiencing. And so with that desire, I started reaching out. And when I would get in situations, I'd realize I don't really know what I'm doing here. But my desire to serve people caused me to find ways to help people better. Through mentorship, through reading, through studying, whatever. So I would say that to lead people well, you have to desire to serve people. That's where it starts.
So I hear you say, to lead people well, you have a desire to serve. So, I mean, but I thought leaders were made to just, I mean, if I'm thinking about a CEO, I don't care about the associate at the bottom. He just needs to get the job done, to get the mission completed. So how do you balance that? You serve. How do you get them to do what, you want them to do? Or am I messing do I have this wrong? Like,
well, I mean, no. I mean, I think, that's what the world teaches.
Yeah.
And, when we are, of course, when we're following the patterns of the world and the principles of the world, it's all about getting to the top.
Yeah.
Getting all you can for yourself.
Yeah.
And using people to benefit you. Right?
Yeah, that's good.
But we're talking about servant leadership. So there's positional leadership, which is more transactional. What can you do for me? And then there's servant leadership, which is transformational. How do I help people become the best they can be?
Yeah.
And I believe that if you would invest in people, that you will always find people who want to invest in what you're doing.
That's so good.
And so a great leader understands that it's not about me, but it's about the team. It's about the whole. What is it we're trying to do? What is the vision? What is the mission? And understanding I can't do this by myself. I need gifts and talents around me. And the way that I find those gifts and talents is I need to invest in people and help them discover their gifts and uncover who they are. And, some people will take what you teach them and what you give them and they'll leave. But that's okay. Those aren't the people you want on your team anyway.
Yeah.
You want people that when you invest in them, they invest back into whatever it is that you guys are doing together.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's good. That's good. And I guess what I would say is, like, can you put it practical, a time where you've seen bad leadership and good leadership when it's been modeled? Can you give me some examples?
Yes. So, I can share an example of when I first, started in ministry. I was working for a ministry, and there was a leader that ran a particular department of this ministry, and he was, very selfish.
Okay.
Everything was about him. It was about his reputation. That caused him to withhold information. He was a very divisive force in the ministry.
Yeah.
In other words, he created silos where these are my people, those are your people. He would, tell his people, you don't have to listen to them. And so really he was undermining the main leader of the ministry, and he was imparting that to the people that worked for him. And what he wanted to do is he wanted the people that were under him to look at him like, I'm the guy. And so, for someone that's, has been around or been healed, you see that very clearly as a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
But that's the way the world teaches. And he would use his position to get people to do what he wanted. He would withhold things if people didn't do what he wanted, So it was kind of this almost abusive, toxic leadership.
Yeah.
I actually had to serve under him for 2 years. I didn't understand, what's going on here,
Yeah.
This is a ministry, I didn't sign up for this. But I felt like in that moment, God was telling me, every situation you're in is a learning opportunity.
That's right.
Even if you're learning what not to do.
Yeah.
Even if I'm learning how not to be.
That's so good.
The type of person that I don't want to be.
Yeah.
So just look at it that if God is for me, who can be against me?
Come on.
And just, learn from whatever situation I'm in.
Yeah.
And if we look at life through that lens, then, everything will always work out to our good. That's good. Life is, 10% what happens to you, 90% how you deal with it.
That's good.
And that's part of being a leader. Part of being a leader is always believing there's an answer.
Yes.
Always believing there's a solution. Always believing that there's a way to get through this. There's a way to overcome this. And if you look at things that way, people want to be around you because you're a problem solver.
Yeah.
So a good leadership, I'll go to, our leader, Pastor Robert.
Yeah.
I worked for Pastor Robert for 5 years. And Pastor Robert was a great leader. He was a leader that, he gave people autonomy, yet he held people accountable. And that's a balance.
Yeah.
How do you hold people accountable but still give them autonomy to do things the way they would do them?
Yeah.
And I watched him do that, and I watched him build a team of very talented, highly productive people. And he was able to bring that team together and get them to rally around a vision. And a lot of that was because of the way he empowers people.
Yeah.
For instance, we'll be sitting down at a table talking about a plan, talking about a vision, and he'll say, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
What would you do if you were in this situation? And it just makes you feel like you have a voice, which causes you to start thinking like, well, if I was the guy, what would I do?
Yeah.
And so I would say he was a good leader. He always taught me the difference between fathering and Pharaohing, Tell
me more about that.
Well, if you think about in the Bible, when the children of Israel were slaves in Egypt, and when Pharaoh got mad at them, he said, I want you to produce more bricks, but I'm going to take the straw that you produce bricks with.
Wow.
So he's demanding something that's almost impossible to do. He's not giving you what you need to do what he's asking you to do.
Yeah.
But a father always makes sure that you have everything you need to do whatever he's asking you to do.
Yeah.
And so he would take that principle and apply it practically, because, you know, we were managing employees who had very natural tasks to do every day.
That's right.
He's like, as a leader, Brandon, you always have to make sure you give them everything they need. What tools do they need? You know, what apps do they need? What supplies do they need?
Yeah.
What time do they need? Always think about, how can I give them what they need to do everything that I'm asking them to do?
Right.
So that's a sign of good leadership, empowering your people to do whatever it is you're expecting.
Wow, that's so good. I think what you said, I heard Dr. Rob Carmen quote this one time, and maybe I'm butchering, but you're only qualified to lead
to the degree that you're willing to serve.
See, I didn't even have to finish it. Come on, somebody.
Yeah.
No, that's good. And so maybe somebody has a desire, you know, to be a good servant in leadership, and they want to serve the people underneath them. But I think, you know, just to go a little bit more practical for those who want to implement, you know, how what would you first say to a leader? Like, what's the first thing they got to take care of? Like, man, do they need to do self-reflect and have people tell them where they're going wrong, or how do we even begin?
Yeah, well, I do think that every leader needs a leader. So let's say you're new in a management position. Yeah. So all of a sudden you've went from being a great employee to now you have 5 employees that someone's asking you, I want you to turn them into the type of employee that you are, right? Yeah. Well, number one, that's a whole different mind shift. Yeah. It's one thing to just take care of your task. It's a whole other thing now that you're managing other people's tasks as well. And so where would you start? Number one, lead by example.
Okay.
You know, what made you
That's so good.
Who you are?
Lead by example.
Lead by example. What was it that you did so well that your superior liked?
Yeah.
Maybe your employees, I mean, it's very simple. So like if one way I empower my employees, so I've learned some skills in time management. Yeah. So when you're running a high-capacity organization or you're running a team, you have deadlines, you have to get things done. Yeah. Well, everybody doesn't manage their time well.
That's right.
So, you know, sit with my team and teach them. Let me teach you some ways to have more time in your life so that you're not overwhelmed, so that you're not trying to get things done at the last minute. Let me show you how I've been able to do this. Yeah. And so what you're doing is you're giving them a tool. You're coming alongside them and you're training them and teaching them something that's gotten you to where you're at in life. I hope that's practical enough. It's like, okay, this helped me get to where I'm at. I want to give it to you. Yeah. Because in the world, a lot of times when we get a position of authority, it's like, well, I'm the leader now. Yeah. I can't give you what I've got because you might get my position one day.
Self-man-made.
That's it. And see, that's fear, and we don't operate out of fear.
That's
good. You know, the goal is how do we build great teams, which build great organizations, which accomplish great things.
That's good.
Right?
I appreciate you and joining us for the podcast today on servant leadership. I think it's something that's needed, and I think if I could summarize today's podcast, you said something. Everybody has the capacity to lead.
Yes.
Everything you do is influencing somebody, whether you see it or not. True leadership is marked and servant. So you said the more you serve, the better you lead, right? Because it builds a bridge between you and the people that you're leading.
Yes.
And the third is, you know, you're there to build people up, not tear them down.
Yes.
Is that pretty fair?
That's pretty fair.
Well, I appreciate you joining us today, and thank you so much to our listeners listening to the Fatherhood Foundation Podcast. We'll see you next week. Take care. God bless.
Thank you.